Blakely? He said, yeah. The only reason I used to listen to Art Blakely records because Sabu was on there. When anything with like African or Afro-Cuban, I would listen to Art Blakely. I wasn't listening to Art Blakely's drumming, no. I wanted to hear the hand drummers. Okay. So anyway, I said, you think I can play them drums? Sit on your play your drums? So I sat on the trap drums, and I was all on top. I was playing timbales. That's all. All I saw was skins. I didn't know no name and no drums or nothing. I saw his hi-hat and I saw the bass drum. It didn't mean nothing because my feet was glued to the pedal. I was just like going through the act. They wasn't even moving. But I was up here. Then after, I said, are you supposed to play these things too, huh? So anyway, I said, Eric, you think I can borrow your drums for 2 days? 3 weeks later, Eric said, hey, you think I can get my drums back? I said, man, one more week, one more week. The lady downstairs was on the 3rd floor, called the housing police on me. Said, this guy up there, he's got a whole band of drummers up there. It was just a trap drum set. So the police would come up, knock on the door and say, you sound good, but you gotta be quiet, play quiet. So I said, okay, so I started playing quiet. Then I had to get the drums up. Okay, so I was doing a gig with this guy named Norman Carr, a Latin jazz gig up in Mount Vernon. He was a vibe player. Bill Fish was playing Congo. And so Bill Fish told me, he said, hey, a friend of mine is coming down from Boston, man. And I knew him from Boston. And he's a good Congo player, man. Maybe he'll come down and we'll have a big jam session. I said, oh yeah, and it happened to be Don Elias. So Don Elias came down and we was up in this club and we was just playing. We was just popping and popping and popping. So then the gig was over and a few months later, Don Elias called me and said, hey, would you like to come up to Boston? In the summer, I got a gig, man.
And you was playing timbales or traps then?
I was playing timbales.
Okay.
I was playing timbales. And so anyway, I went up there and I took this gig for the summer. And before that, let's backtrack. Bill Fitch had left New York and went and played with Cal Jada. Cal Jada called him to play. And so Cal Jada came into town, and so I got to hang out with them and play a little bit with Cal Jada, and then we would go around the city and play. And I met John Nesbitt, the bass player, with him. So when I went back up to Boston, because John was from Boston, I located John Nesbitt, and I was hanging out in his house. Mm-hmm. So he introduced me to his friend, who was a piano player, Hal Galper. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I would go to see John. He wasn't there, so I would go up to Hal Galper's house and hang out with him. And he had these drums there. So Hal Galper needed some money, man. He was short on cash. He said, you want to buy them drums for $100? I said, yes, I do. It was a trap drum set. And probably every drummer in Boston at that time played on that set. So I was playing on the historical, antique, whatever you want to call it, drummer that all them drummers in Boston touch. So anyway, I got those drums, and about 2 weeks later, Hal Galper wanted the drums back. I said, no way, my man. I said, they're mine now. So I took them drums up to the house, and I was working on them, and then at night I go play my timbales, bound ding gong, ding bong, ding gong, and do that set. And I'm just playing them traps, man, and working it out. So I said, what am I going to do with this bass drum and hi-hat? I said, what's going to happen here? And I said, I know what to do. Because every time I would play conga, we used to keep them in stands. A lot of people today want to sit down. Most of the conga players that had them in stands were the band leaders. Because they couldn't sit down. They had to be directing the band. But we always had these dance steps we would do. Whether you played timbales or anything, anytime you were standing up, you never played like I'm going to dance on my bass drum and hi-hat. And I still do it today. I dance on there. I ain't worry about no figures, because if I dance, I know they're going to be coordinated with up here. Up here is going to be coordinated below, so I get a four-way kind of coordination thing going on. That's the way it's traditionally done. It's all about transposing your feet from dance onto some sort of mechanical devices. Basically, that's what it is. So anyway, there was a club, Connolly's, I don't know if it still exists, and Sonny Stitt was like he was like the house band. And on Sundays, they had these jam sessions. So this drummer, he's still up there. He's a great drummer. He just never was able to leave Boston, Lenny Nelson. So I met Lenny Nelson, and Lenny Nelson said, man, you got to go over to Conley's, man, because that's where all the jam sessions are. So I went over there on a Sunday, and I'm checking everybody out, and this guy walks up to the stage with his alto, man. And all the musicians left the stage. They said, man, that weird alto player, man, that dude is weird. And nobody wanted to play with him. It was Giuseppe Logan. So I said, man, that guy's hit, man. So I jumped out of my seat, ran into the stage with them drums and started working. Giuseppe looked around, and Giuseppe was just, you know, Giuseppe played like this. I don't know what he does now, but he used to play like this here. I'm going like this here. So after it was over, I said, man, that was great, man. He said, yeah, man, that was nice, that was nice. So he invited me over to his loft. So we left there and went over to his loft, and we started hanging out. I said, hey, Giuseppe, man, I got a place, man, over this bar, and it's like a loft, man. Why don't you come over and bring your horn? So he said, okay. So he came over, and then he said, I know a bass player, Hakeem Jamai, bass player. So he came over. We had
this. Hakeem Jamal.
Jamal, huh?
You call him what?
We used to be Jamai. Jamal
okay.
Now, maybe changed it. I don't know.
I played when I first came to New York.
Detroit.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's a wild brother. He's a wild brother from the streets.
Yeah, definitely.
Street brother.
Yeah.
So we was
strong.
Yeah. So we was playing, and we was doing it. Unfortunately, Giuseppe misplaced all those tapes. Got some great. He even had Fred Ballard one day. I don't know if you remember Fred Ballard. Fred Ballard didn't last too long. He came to New York, but he was the new trumpet player everybody was talking about. Elvin Jones used him for a little while, and he disappeared like a lot of musicians that was great just disappeared. So anyway, came back to New York, and I was just doing my set. Giuseppe Logan was hanging around town, and he said, man, I met this guy, man, Roswell Rudd. And they got this band. He invited me to a rehearsal. He said, you want to go? I said, yeah. Went over to this loft downtown, Mike Snow. Loft, and so the New York Quartet was up there. It was J.C. Moses on drums.
Before you got there.
Oh, yeah. J.C. Moses did not like that up there because I took his job from him. And so anyway, they rehearsed, and Giuseppe sat in. Then Giuseppe said, did my man sit in? Sit in? They said, yes. I went and I sat in. And so there were smiles on everybody's face, and J.C. was on the side looking at me like this. Just looking, he wouldn't say nothing to me after. So he left, and I hung around because they had recorded it, reel to reel. Okay, this is 1964. And when they played it back, I said, is that the way I sound? I had never heard myself. I had never heard myself. It was amazing. I said, wow. I didn't even recognize myself. Then Roz and John said to themselves, this is the kind of drummer we want. They said, if you want the gig, you got it. I said, yes, I do. And that was my start. When I came out with them, that was my whole thing, you see. But I've been playing drums for a long time, but to make the transition to traps, that was entirely something new. Now this is the real deal. Okay, the real deal is this, is that I decided not to change my name.
Everybody was changing their names around that
A
time.
lot of people changing it. I'm gonna give this guy a little respect. I used to say his name because I didn't like what he did. He changed his name to a Spanish name. And he lied about his whole situation. Now when I read about him, they say, well, he's biracial. Biracial of what? They don't say the content, but he lied. He lied about his whole thing. And he broke in. He broke into the Timbale thing. He was passing for a Puerto Rican. I said, man, you're not Puerto Rican. He said, man, I said, you get the gig, man, you got to be like Puerto Rican, man. I said, hey, man, I'm going to be accepting on who I am, man. Because a lot of guys used to come up to me and they started talking Spanish. I said, I'm not Spanish, man. They said, man, you play like a Spanish guy, man. The Cubans used to say, man, you play like a Cuban, man. You play timbales. Only Cubans play like that. But I want to invite my old friend here today, but I didn't get a chance. In 11th grade, I grew up with a guy named Renato Chacon, whose father was Everardo Chacon, who was from Cuba, man. And I was hanging around him all the time, man. His father was one of the most respected timbale conga and bongo players on the set, man. So I'm in the house with these guys, and I was 11 years old with Ray, doing Wah Cole at 11 years old, man. He was talking about the Nani Gwisi Mo, or the Nani Giz man. I didn't know what this guy, not Santeria. His father was priest, and I was getting all this stuff and not realizing his father didn't speak English. All I know, we go in the house, he put on 45s, and he letting us watch it, man, and not saying like you play the beat like this, to play, just listen, and get the feeling. So that was instilled into me.
They were from Cuba?
Yeah.
Was he Abaquá? What was he into?
He was Abaquá too.
Oh, okay.
Abaquá, but it's a Naniga, man.
Oh, okay.
A Naninga, however one you want to say it, but Santeria, you know? But they're from that whole different thing, but they're definitely Abaquá, man, you see? But the thing was, and listen, I understand we're in a conservatory right now. I've been teaching for the last 39 years at Bennington College, so I know what all the academics and everything is about. And this is what I try to tell people and press upon my students. I think try to get as much information as possible and then try to put it all together. But one thing that I see that's missing today, I see, and maybe it's happening, maybe I don't know, y'all gotta hit me to it, is that it's about sitting someone down and say, watch and listen and feel. And not just, first of all, getting everything laid out in a certain kind of way, where it's outside of you. It's outside of you. And then you get all the academics down, you see, everything you do, you feel like you can notate, you can do it this way and do it that way, and you play exactly as it is. And then you go into the so-called, what I like to call the bush setting. The bush setting, where the people is with nature. And you play that, and they say, give you a courteous applause. But nobody say, don't feel it, don't feel it, don't feel it. That's the big difference. I know a person who is very knowledgeable in the technicalities of bata, the Cuban bata drumming. They got all that down. They have written material on there. And one of the complaints people say about him, they say, yeah, he's technical, he can write stuff, but he don't have no soul, man. And I know the person, and I see what the deal is, you see. So people haven't been ritualized. You gotta be in a set, when you get into a place, a little small set, where people almost scare you, man. When you get somebody that will pop your eyes. There is a drummer, and they're still alive to my knowledge, that's a monster, with the spirit and the soul, and he lives right in Philadelphia. Bobby Crowder. Right. Bobby Crowder.
He's still alive.
Bobby Crowder. Oh yes. Bobby Crowder had a statue of him in Accra. And Sakakuye, who came here and taught all those guys in Philly. Sonny Morgan and Sonny Morgan, Gawu Maso, and
he came from where? Nigeria?
He came from Ghana.
From Ghana.
He came to the Philadelphia Institute of Music to study jazz, saxophone. In turn, he taught him all the Ghanaian music. And that's why on that second record, after the first record, Ola Tuji, he brought those guys in from Philly because they had it. But Bobby Crowder, that guy, Sakakuye said, no drummer in Ghana plays with the spirit. I know Bobby because we played together.
He played with Coltrane too, right?
Huh?
He played with Coltrane.
Bobby Crowder?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
He could have.
He sat in and he did some sets.
Yeah, well, we did that. You know, we did that record with Montego Joe together. Bobby was on that record. We did it together. But I did other things with Bobby. So I know Bobby from being just close together. And we just popping with each other. And you see, and that's what you need. Somebody, Bobby was just like, good like to see her. He would go in, but you can feel everything emanating. So you got to get around people like that so they can throw it into you. Then maybe you want to go down and you can like analyze and, you know, capture it in a way, in an approximated way. It's only approximating something because you will never put this down on the paper because it's moving.
They still talk about him in Philly.
Yeah, no, Bobby's,
a lot of drummers come out.
No, Bobby's a spirit house. He's a spirit soul. Bobby's a spirit. But I'm saying, this is the way I came up. You'd be on the set. And if you wasn't happening, people were not afraid to say, get up. You cannot play. Go home, practice. There's a lot of polite stuff. And we're missing a lot of that. This is what I see missing. I see a lot of technicalities, people sharp, mechanically sharp, but we got to restore this back deep down inside. So you know what I say? I'm always looking for somebody that's older than me. And one thing I